Good evening, everyone. Well, this is Andy Shepherd with another Your Success Now teleconference. Hello, wherever you are in the world. This week's call is about surefire ways to get a good night's sleep. As many of you know, I'm a success coach, and my speciality is in transforming through transformation using timeline therapy. I have been formally doing this since 2009, and it's been my privilege to work with hundreds of people to helping them get better relationships, better income, and happier lives. I've coached people from every walk of life possible. As you may have heard, due to the success of these teleconference calls, I am now going to have my own AM radio show on 1100 KNFX Independent Talk Radio in Phoenix. I believe the start date will be postponed by a couple of weeks, but I'm going to keep you informed with a definite date. So that's going to be coming soon. Well, let's get started with today's call. I've got a lot to cover on this, and so maybe let's see whether we go over a little bit of time. Hopefully not. I can just keep to 1 hour. So every single one of us has probably suffered from a sleepless night a time or two, right? Tonight I'm going to look into the psychological point of view with this and the physical as well. This way I'm going to get it covered from both sides, right? I'm going to include a few surefire tricks I've learned when we are suffering from insomnia, when we can't sleep. It is quite a fine balance to get all these conditions right to promote excellent sleep. So this is why I'm going to go into quite a lot of detail today about this. So some of the things you're going to know, they're going to be obvious, but there's going to be a lot of things that I think are going to be new to you. And like I say, it's a fine balance. So I do recommend that you be patient and you're going to definitely get some golden nuggets out of this. I've done a lot of research on this, and I'm not going to be able to give you all of the information that I've gleaned. I'm going to do my best. I'm actually considering doing some kind of ebook or audio product, maybe even both. So I'd love to hear your interest on that and your comments about that. Also, I'm going to start doing something different from now on. I'm going to make a recording of this easily available to you. Previously, I was saying that you need to get in contact with me. I want as many people as possible to benefit from this call. And from that, I mean, what I do for a living is to help other people, to take people out of dark places and take them not to a tunnel, to the light at the end of the tunnel, but to the light. So I would love for you to be sharing this with other people, because I want to help as many people as I can, like I say. So perhaps you know a friend who could benefit from what I'm saying tonight or some of my previous works, and I would love for you to share them, in wherever you're meeting them, on Facebook, Twitter, email, whatever. Let's I'm going to talk about the physical side of this first and go into quite a lot of detail, and then later I'll start going into the psychological. So, feel free to skip around a bit. If you're on the recording, you can always go to the second half of this and listen to the physical side, the psychological, sorry. But I do recommend that you listen to the physical, because from my research, it's shown that this is definitely having a big effect on our ability to get a good night's sleep. And that's what today's topic is all about. So we know that we shouldn't drink coffee and anything that is heavy before we go to sleep, right? So let's go in a lot more deep and be much more specific. So, for example, bananas are great to eat on a daily basis. As you may well know, they are packed with muscle-relaxing potassium and magnesium. They also have an amino acid tryptophan in them, which turns into relaxing serotonin, sleep-inducing melatonin. It takes an hour to reach your brain, so a bit of planning is a good idea. Heartburn is a major hindrance to sleep. An alkaline diet is great for general health and vitality. More on that when I talk about how many hours of sleep you need and how to sleep less if you want to spend more time awake so that you can spend it working or playing or doing whatever you choose. High-protein foods are great for cutting down on acid reflux. So a high-protein snack would be good for counteracting this. Cutting down on the cause rather than the symptom would be a good idea. So again, I would recommend that you take a look at an alkaline diet. Hot milk works because it's full of tryptophan. Personally, I believe that milk is for cows, not for humans, but I'll let you decide on if this is good for you or not. Obviously, be careful not to drink too much before you go to sleep so that you can minimize waking up and visiting the restroom during your night down to a minimum. And obviously, go there for the last time to remove as much liquid as possible immediately before you go to sleep. Like I say, I'm giving you a few little obvious things because I just want to make this thing as complete as possible. So here's something I didn't know. Cherries have been found to be full of melatonin. A handful before you go to bed are useful. If you can't get them fresh, you could try cherry juice or dried cherries. For me, I think that's great. Any excuse to eat cherries, as I love them. Green tea, green tea contains tannin, which promotes drowsiness. Obviously, decaf is the way to go. All varieties of tea help you relax. Mild herbal ones are recommended. And again, be careful and make sure you're drinking decaf. A bowl of oatmeal is good too. It's full of calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, silicon, and potassium. Great sleep-inducing nutrients. Be careful how you sweeten it, as this may cause the opposite effect. So this was kind of like a bit of a surprise to me because, to me, oatmeal is something that you eat in the morning. I never thought of it as being something useful for letting you go to sleep. So I guess it depends on what you do. In the morning, you're probably putting lots of sugar on it or something like that, or putting, whatever. So that's going to probably wake you up. High-fat meals should be avoided before bedtime. A greasy burger and fries will make you drowsy, sure, because it shuts off the oxygen to your brain. But it has been shown that that they cause less hours of sleep. Not only do they make you uncomfortable while you are trying to sleep, because maybe you're too full, for example, meals laden with calories and fat can complicate matters for anyone suffering from that thing again, acid reflux. If you really insist on having a heavy meal, I'd suggest you do it about 3 hours before going to bed. As we know, we need to go easy on caffeine before the late afternoon or when you're turning in. Caffeine is not just in coffee or tea. You can also find it in chocolate, chewing gum, which surprised me, and medication. So a quick look at the ingredients is advisable. Not everyone is sensitive to caffeine. Some can drink a cup of coffee before they go to bed and be fine. Experiment if you're not sure, though I think you probably already know. I talk later about an alkaline diet, and it also talks about how to counteract the ups and downs. So part of it is taking out caffeine. And I'll give you some tips on how I found it and how it was useful to me. And it's definitely something to bear in mind, but it does take a bit of effort. The next thing is that we need to find our personal sleep needs. Different age groups appear to need different amounts of sleep, and sleep needs can appear to be an individual thing. There is something called basal sleep need, which is the amount of sleep our bodies need on a regular basis for optimum performance. And sleep debt, the accumulated sleep that is lost to poor sleep habits, sickness, awakenings due to environmental factors and other causes. Too much or too little sleep is being linked with illness, a lack of concentration, and being accident-prone. So finding the right amount is essential. Personally, I believe that the amount of sleep depends on what work the body is doing during sleep. If it is digesting food, fighting acidity, repairing, or on a low biorhythm cycle, I'll talk about biorhythms later, then perhaps more sleep will be needed. Hence, you'll gauge your own need for the correct amount of sleep dependent on these factors. Invest in a good bed. Personally, I am sleeping on a memory foam mattress and I'm having the best night of rest of my life. In the past, I slept on uncomfortable mattresses and slept generally for 5 to 6 hours and was constantly tired. When you think of how many hours you spend every night in bed and what your productivity and happiness is going to be, it is easy to see that it is money well spent. And no, I don't have an affiliate with any bed provider, maker or manufacturer or distributor, I promise. I also recommend finding the right pillow, as neck pain can be a cause of loss of sleep. I use a specially contoured foam one and carry it with me wherever I sleep. Loose clothing is a must, and I would recommend avoiding tight hairbands or tight socks. A dark, quiet room is, for me, a must. Though some people can sleep in a room with the light on and the television on with no problem. Personally, I can't do that. But I noticed when I lived in Brazil, Brazilians could do this easily. I guess they became accustomed to it. A lot of my people that I knew, they lived in pretty crowded houses. So maybe they just didn't have a choice. Firstly, I'd recommend a sleeping mask or good foam earplugs if you're not able to have a place which is dark, because often it gets, when the sun rises, you're going to start waking up. So, if you want to wear a kind of an eye mask, then that might be the way forward. So, if you don't want to invest in heavy curtains, which, by the way, are preferable to blinds, Venetian blinds are very pretty and practical, but as far as I'm concerned, they're just not very good at keeping the early morning sunlight out. Generally, eye masks from airplanes don't work very well, and also bear in mind that some foam earplugs are better than others. As a rule of thumb, earplugs that are denser, the denser they are, the better they are at acoustic blocking. But be warned, when you start to use these, you'll probably not be able to sleep without them in the future. But I think this is a small price to pay. Dim your alarm clock display and make sure you have no flashing lights from computers, etc. I said, turn all your electronic stuff off. If you're going to read in bed before you sleep, make sure you use a bedside light. Bright light will keep you awake, and it'll start waking you up, basically. So if you're dimming it, it's conducive to start triggering off some sleep patterns. Personally, I'm not in favor of reading as a sleep inducer. This became a conditioned response to me because I associated reading with sleeping. And so generally, when I read, it makes me feel drowsy. So I've stopped doing this to reverse the pattern. So it may be something to be aware of. Whatever you read or watch on TV should be light, and I wouldn't recommend anything heavy or violent. A comedy and not watching the news are my personal recommendations. In fact, I'm no longer a fan of watching the news anyway. We fill our minds with such terrible things. I believe that we can live satisfactorily without such information. So excuse me for having that viewpoint. Watching something that is going to make you laugh is a very good idea, whatever the time of the day. Talking from law of attraction point of view, Esther Hicks says that we should stay on our high-flying disc. This is, basically, very briefly, high-flying disc is a good place of being. A low-flying disc would be being depressed and miserable and angry. So comedy is a great place to get you in a good high state, high-flying disc. The happier your mind is, the better you are at attracting good things into your life. If you have lots of good things in your life, this will promote a good night's sleep, won't it? And that goes for video games too. Violent ones before you go to sleep are probably not a good idea. As we dream, we assimilate what we have experienced throughout the day. Violent films or violent video games will be assimilated, leading to nightmares. My mother had a very interesting theory. She was not into horror movies at all, and in fact, she said that she never had nightmares because she just wouldn't watch them. And so she said there was nothing in her mind that could cause a nightmare. So I thought that was quite interesting. Might be something to think about. A nice cuddle from your loved one just before you go to sleep is a great way to get your mind in a pleasant place. Firstly, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to need to cuddle sitting upright. As soon as I lay down, if I don't go to sleep almost immediately, I tend to wake up because I have a pattern of as soon as I hit my head on the pillow, as long as I'm not disturbed, I'll go straight to sleep. So that might be worth you finding out and seeing if that's your pattern as well. Sleeping positions are a critical one too. And I'm not going to go into this because there are lots of pictures that you need to see. I'll leave you to research that on your own. Google being the best place to look for these things. My chiropractor tells me that we have a set position for sleeping and that we find it very difficult to sleep in other positions. So bear this in mind if you are interested in changing your sleep position. However, it may be good to do this because definitely it causes stress on our internal organs. And it can be bad for our skeletal posture. Sometimes a pillow between the knees, or there is actually kind of a special body pillow that you can get, which can really help. So something to look into. I also recommend, like I said, you turn off all of your electronic devices, but especially phones. It surprises me how many people actually leave their phone on. Obviously, if it's going to ring, it's going to wake you up. But for me, just the knowledge that it might go off is enough to keep me awake. I think this comes from when I used to work for a computer company, and I used to have my pager on all night. That got to be quite a stressful situation because it would just go off at all hours. Another thing that's pretty useful is a hot bath or shower for about 20 to 30 minutes at 100 degrees Fahrenheit is great and gives you great sleep benefits. Cool water will probably wake you up, so you need to have it pretty hot. Lowering the temperature of the room to 65 degrees or lower is good as it stops us sweating at night, and the hot skin, cool room combination provokes sleepiness. You can even use it as an excuse to get the cuddle in that I talked about earlier. Personally, I think it's good if you have a combination of covers if you don't have air conditioning or it's not very good air conditioning. A sheet with a thin blanket on top followed by a thin to medium quilt is good for all room temperatures. Being too hot or too cold is not going to help you get a good night's sleep. To add to your complications, your significant other could have a different body temperature to yours or be more sensitive to the heat or cold. You may need you need your side of the bed to be covered and your other half not, and so on. So, like I say, this sheet, blanket, quilt combination is good because you can just kind of fold your half to the side or vice versa. If you're listening to this and you wanted to hear the psychological part of it, it is coming, so bear with me. I just wanted to talk about it. This subject. It is important to know the physical part of it as well. It's a very key component. So that's why today I'm actually spending time talking about this. Usually I talk about issues that are on the mind, but with this subject I need to talk about the physical side of it. So bear with me, please. Regular exercise is not only great for your health, but it can definitely help your sleep. As long as you are not straining or overdoing it, exercise can be very beneficial to sleep. If you're aching due to over-exercising because you didn't listen to your body or you were injured, either could be a reason for disturbing your sleep. Other benefits of exercise are that you're detoxifying when exercising or doing something physical, which gives your body less work at night, and also it will relax you, especially if you're incorporating plenty of stretching, which you certainly will be doing if you're doing things properly and you're following a good exercise routine. I talked about T25 previously, which is excellent for that. We need to work on minimizing the possibility of aches and pains, as they will obviously keep us awake, like I said. At present, I am getting great benefits from following a DVD exercise routine called Focus T25. It has high cardio, works the whole body, works a lot on core, and has a lot of stretching. The sweat pours off you. Not only is it superb at fat burning and getting you in shape, but also detoxes you and burns off any potential viruses. The stretching throughout the routines and at the end ensures that you don't have aches and pains during sleep, but obviously only if you're paying attention to how you're doing the exercises. And no, I don't have any affiliates with Focus T25, but I'm just telling you about stuff that I know works for me. Obviously, you can find other things as well. I also highly recommend yoga. Personally, something slow like hatha yoga. Tai Chi and meditation are excellent too. A good time massage and saunas on a weekly basis are also a great idea. Also, osteopathy or chiropractic treatment might be necessary for some. So I talked about biorhythms before. We have biorhythms which start at the moment we are born. Basically, there are various cycles. The main ones are physical, emotional, intellectual, and intuitive. If you're interested in finding out more, you can get an app for your phone for free. At least for an Android you can. I'm sure you can find it for an iPhone. These biorhythms are in the form of like a sine wave. A sine wave is basically got peaks and troughs to it, so what this is, it's positive and negative states. So for today's topic, we don't need to consider the physical part. The general idea is that you conserve energy when you are at your biorhythmic physical peak, so that you have that energy in reserve when you're in the trough, when you're in the negative part. So if you are in the trough phase and you haven't done this, you may feel pretty exhausted because you've used all your energy up. And this could be the time when you feel as if you need to get more sleep. So this is worth looking into to see whether this affects you. So now I'm going to talk about ways of being able to sleep less. And like I said to you previously, I think the reason that we need to sleep a lot is because our body is working. It's either digesting, it's detoxing, it's doing stuff while you're sleeping. So if we minimize this, then we have less need for sleep because we need to do less repairing. So Tony Robbins has done a lot of research. In fact, he started out in life by promoting health. So this is a subject which he's very passionate about. So he found a way of getting where you can just get between 4 and 6 hours sleep every night and function very, very well and have a lot of energy. So this is a huge subject. Basically, at one of his seminars, he spent the whole day just talking about this. So I can't do that now. I'm just going to give you a pretty quick overview. Following his guidelines, I've had some success, and at times they've been very dramatic. But in my experience, you need to get all the factors bang on to be able to do this. But here it is anyway, a quick overview. But essentially, what he talks about is promoting an alkaline diet. So we need to remove all acid from our diet, and the body. We should not have acid in our body. If your blood is just a tiny fraction out in acidity, it is something that is completely lethal to you. And so there's a whole series of mechanisms to make sure that doesn't happen. So obviously, if the body is doing this, it's having to work overtime. So removing acid is the key. So this is where it gets pretty heavy because it means, you need to remove meat out of your diet, red and white, no coffee, no alcohol, no caffeine, no dairy, no eggs. I'm sorry, no caffeine is not the acid part of it, but to keep you from having highs and lows, you need to take caffeine out and also sugar. So you need to eat lots of alkaline foods, and there's all sorts of diets about that. So basically, you probably know what this is. It's about salads, it's about kale. Stuff that's got high water content in it is good because you need to get to hydrate extensively. You need several litres of water a day. Good water is essential, reverse osmosis, to get the alkaline into the water, because water, believe it or not, can actually be slightly acidic or very acidic, depending on what it is. And specific types of bottled water, some of them are very acidic, so this is something to look into. To counteract this, you just need to put a slice of lemon in your water, so that's pretty neat. Things, high water content foods, a friend of mine swears by, really likes watermelons. The problem with that is you're getting a sugar boost, so that's really not going to work with this diet. Further information, I recommend, if you want to look into this, you read the pH Miracle by Dr. Robert O. Young. Following his guidelines, you actually get other benefits. Not only do you sleep better, but you can become healthier, and you can reduce the risk of serious illnesses. And even talks about curing very serious illnesses through an alkaline diet. So that's worth looking into. Tony Robbins did a really great product called Living Health, which I can thoroughly recommend. Basically, it's the recording of his day in one of his seminars where he just focuses on health. So that's really excellent. So great. That's the physical side of it. Now we can start looking at the psychological side of things. So for people who've been listening previously, this is probably what you're more accustomed to hearing me talk about. I usually talk about things of the mind. So if we're troubled by things in our mind, and this is why we can't sleep, then perhaps we could do something like W. Clement Stone says, and says, that's great. Remember, he's all about transforming things. So how can that be great? Well, it's basically when we can't sleep, to me, it's an alarm bell going off and telling us that something is wrong or that something needs to be dealt with. Often we get upset about things because we think that nothing can be done about them. But is that really true? If we're willing to deal with the consequences, there is always a solution. And if we get creative and believe that it is possible to find a solution and are open to it in whatever shape or form it may be, then basically the solution is going to come. The secret is to then be open to what the solution is. The more things we let accumulate, the less sleep we will probably have. So the sensible thing to do is to deal with it, right? I hope you're all saying yes to me at this point and you agree with me. So this is an area basically that I can definitely coach you with. So you get a double bonus by coaching with me on things like this, because you get your worries and concerns solved and resolved, and you also get a good night's sleep. So you get 2 for the price of 1. So that's pretty cool, don't you think? A common thing to think about to keep us awake is when we're thinking about an ex, we want back, we missed, maybe an injustice that has been done. So there are several ways that we can deal with this. Obviously, as a coach, this is something that I can help you with and I can really get my teeth into. And in fact, I'm certified in this area. So sometimes we need to think, when we're thinking about this, or anything for that matter, is this the best time to be thinking of this? You need to think this is the moment that thoughts have the maximum potential to keep you awake. So they're going to appear at this point because this is the only time that you're going to you're allowing them to come up. You relax, so they're just going to pop up. And they could take an emotional hold on you, and you just start going cyclically into them, just become snowballing. So what I would recommend is that you allow yourself to think the following. This is my sleep time. I only allow myself to think about things that will be conducive to sleep. Admittedly, this doesn't always work every time, but often it does, so it's worth trying out, and probably the more you do it, the more success you're going to have. Whatever happens, you need to take action in your waking hours, because it's just going to come back again. Whatever is not allowing us to sleep is demanding action. They're asking us to resolve them. If we ignore them, like I say, they're just going to resurface whenever our mind is not active, such as when we're trying to sleep. We need to do something about them and not ignore them. It will be an absolute pleasure to help you with these matters. A dear friend of mine, a Brazilian guy called Dr. Gil, gave me a great tip about when he couldn't sleep. He would say, okay, Bobby, if that's the way it is, let's go and do something. So he gets up and he goes and works for a bit. Generally, after an hour or so, one feels tired and we can resume sleep. Often we can't sleep because we're thinking of all the things we need to do the next day. Waking up and writing them down is all that we need to do. It will stop us from staying awake, worrying about what you might have forgotten something. I remember when I had my school in Brazil, I was constantly thinking, oh my goodness, I definitely must do this tomorrow. I must talk to this person. I must make sure that thing happens, etc. So once you've written it all down, you can then think, I have written it down. Now I can let go, and there is nothing else to remember. And I used to keep a notepad beside my bed and do this on a regular basis, and that really did help me, because there were periods when I had some major problems with the school, and this was the only way that I could get any sleep. So, in fact, keeping a notepad beside your bed is a good idea anyway, because, you know, basically you can write down whatever comes into your head and then roll over and go back to sleep again. I actually did this last night. I kept thinking of more and more things to add to this call. I have actually become quite good at writing in the dark, although I must admit some of the scribblings are a little hard to read, but there you go. A good habit is to write your to-do list before you sleep, so that basically you're not going to wake up and need to do this process. Journals are also a good idea too, and they can let your mind let go of whatever it is that you've been struggling with as you get it out onto paper. Journals are good in many, many other ways as well. I recommend all of my clients to use one. It's a great way of putting down your thoughts, of visualizing, setting your goals, and much, much more. So I very much recommend getting a journal. Journal is not like a diary. It's not about you saying everything that you did, but it can be if you like. I would do something more, pretty useful with it, like talk about the successes that you've had during that day. You could just have a journal which is just about that, just talking about the successes that you've had. And when you're in a low point, you're feeling a bit sorry for yourself, you can just go through them. And I've heard many people really getting a lot of benefit from doing that, something that Tony Robbins really revels in. He does this extensively and uses the technique that I've just told you. You know, if he was down about something, he'd just read it and feel pretty good. So sometimes we can get disturbed by something in the early morning, say 5 or 6, when we wanted to lie in, say on a Sunday or whatever, and can't sleep anymore. So for me, I find that if I have a decaf coffee and a couple of slices of toast, it takes my blood to my stomach, and I get back to sleep for another 3 or 4 hours. Also, it's difficult to sleep if your stomach is growling, so that's why it's a good idea to put some food in there. So something you can try, and let me know how that works. I often do a mixture of the two. Maybe I eat a mini breakfast, taking care of the guidelines I gave you at the beginning of this call, and I can do a little work too. Soon I am feeling drowsy and ready to sleep again. If you really can't sleep, I recommend doing a couple of yoga exercises, or they call them asanas. A couple of what we call cobra positions and cat stretches will release any tension from the lower back, which is where it will have accumulated during the day. And I find that really a great way to get me to sleep. That's why I don't need any type of medication, because I just do a couple of cobras, cat stretch, and boom, I'm asleep again. If I really can't get to sleep, if I've really got something major on my mind and it's troubling me, and this doesn't happen nowadays, but in the past it's happened, and I basically go into a deep yoga relaxation. I may not sleep all night, and the next day I'll know that I've not slept, but basically it gives me the ability to be able to function by going into this deep relaxation, and you are getting some rest from it. Remember, often the next day you're not going to feel too bad, but it's the day after that that is going to catch up on you. So an early night on the eve of the day is a good idea. I'm sorry that I don't have time to teach you these yoga positions. Also, I mean, this is something that I need to show you some pictures of. So I could describe it now, but I don't think it makes much sense to you. Googling it or going to a yoga class or perhaps even asking a friend who does yoga how to do it should get you the know-how easily. If not, feel free to email or message me. Well, like I said, I'm not a fan of medication, but I will give you a couple of natural directions. I'm not sure if this is available in America, but when I was much younger, my mum shared with me a couple of things which are useful. There's something called Sunovan, which is kind of like a tranquilizer. It works, but you need to take it regularly. You have to take it every day. So I wasn't very keen on that, and I don't think it really had much effect. There's something else called Passiflora, which was much better, and I only needed to take it at the when I needed it. I don't know what the active ingredients are for either of those. So, but I'm just saying that basically there are some herbal remedies. If you've listened, if you've just come into the call now, get the recording, listen to the beginning of this call, and you'll find all sorts of tips on natural things that you can do, like eating cherries and bananas and so on. So hopefully you won't need medication. So let's suppose that we didn't manage to get a good night's sleep. What are we going to do? Well, by following our normal habit of drinking coffee, this is basically the next day. So you've woken up, you're feeling pretty groggy. So you could do your normal thing of drinking coffee, possibly putting lots of sugar in it. This is going to wake you up, but the long-term effects are not good. Basically, you're going to have ups and downs with this, and you know your body's all over the place because you're hitting a real high and then you hit a real low. This is why we're constantly having craving drinking coffee or eating sugary things, because we just need to get that high back in again. So it's not very clever. Some people live on energy drinks. Personally, these drinks scare the life out of me, because they've got high dosages of caffeine and goodness knows what else in them. I'm sure that in years to come they'll be seen as a health risk. Again, this is just my own personal ideas on the matter. A green drink is much better. So a green drink has got many ingredients in it, such as wheatgrass and so on. Now, what they would do is they will really alkalize your body. The other thing is that they're actually at a high frequency. All of our organs in our body have a certain frequency to them, and the food that we take in gets assimilated into our body. So if the food is a low frequency, it's not really doing our body very much good at all. Cancer, for example, is a low frequency. So if you're eating low-frequency food, this is what is thought to propagate cancer. So high-frequency food is the way to go. Green drinks is definitely going to help you, and it's going to alkalize. And this is definitely, I mean, you could try the whole Tony Robbins diet that I was talking about, Roberto Young, but to me, the green drink is something that is a definite great way to go forward. And I'll give you an example of why. I've been a crew member for Tony Robbins, and basically you go for several days and you work a lot, and we love doing it. It's, you know, you're not forced into it, but we like to do as much as we can, because we've seen the transformations in ourselves, and so we want transformations for other people. Basically, we can just get about 4 hours sleep a night. Drinking this 3 times a day kept us going. So the amount of energy that I got from it was phenomenal. So that is definitely something to bear in mind. But this is a green drink. It's got nothing to do with green tea, okay? So if the worst comes to the worst, I highly recommend a power nap to get the maximum benefit from this. I recommend you learn how to go into also a deep yoga relaxation like I talked about before. You'll probably find this on the internet. You could go and do yoga classes or find somebody who can tell you how to do it, or email or text me if you can't find that resource. By doing this power nap or deep relaxation for about 10-15 minutes, I can fully recharge. In Brazil, it was so hot, it was normal to have a power nap after lunch and turbocharge with this deep relaxation really took me to another level, like I said. So I got into the habit of doing that, something that I'd recommend. So in a couple of minutes, I'm going to open up for questions, so get ready for this. I've enjoyed this topic so much, like I said, that at the beginning of the call, I'm considering creating an ebook, possibly Kindle or audio products, or possibly both, talking about this subject. Please let me know if you would be of interest in receiving them when I've completed them, and also give me your thoughts on this. Okay, so I'm going to open up see if there's anybody out there. I hope there is. Let's see. So does anybody have any questions or observations about what I've been saying? Anybody like to say anything? Don't be shy. Okay, well, if you want to ask me questions via email, or if you want to get in contact with me on Facebook, please feel free to do that. So, like I say, if you want to work with any of these matters, if you've got anything that's keeping you awake at night, then basically see it as an alarm bell. And it's basically your subconscious mind saying, hey, here's something that I'd like you to deal with. So as a coach, this is something I can definitely help you with. And it will be my pleasure to do so. So for some of you who have known my work before, basically I work at releasing blockages. I'm going to help you with accountability and goal setting. I work extensively with law of attraction. I'm pretty intuitive about stuff, so I'm going to really lock into whatever your issue is. And basically, whatever advice I'm giving you is, I've lived a lot. I've been through some pretty tough times. So I'm going to be dealing with things authentically. So get in contact with me in the two following ways. You can go to my fan page, which is facebook.com, Shepherd Coaching, SHEPHERD. Or you can email me at andy@shepherdcoaching.com. Again, SHEPHERD coaching.com. Next week, I'm going to be talking about accountability. And I've got a special free gift to give you on the subject as well. So I'll be telling you how to get your free gift. So I do hope that you've all found this beneficial. The format has been different this time. This time I decided to talk more about the physical aspect because this was necessary to give you the results that I wanted. This subject really, there was a big physical component to this. So don't worry, this is not going to be a habit. This is just a one-off where I'm talking more about physical stuff rather than talking about the mind. So love to have your feedback on that. So thank you so much for listening. Like I say, next week we'll be talking about accountability. And as I always say, make today a successful one. Thank you all and good night.